Welcome to Men Let Me Reason, the podcast, a space dedicated to fostering open and honest conversations about the complex realities of fatherhood and ultimately manhood in today's world. We will be exploring the unspoken issues that we men face, shedding light on what society expects of us, our emotions, and our social interactions at all levels, especially within the family. This podcast isn't just about acknowledging issues, it's about us men being accountable, transparent, and finding solutions while building strong support systems. So, men, let me reason. Welcome to another edition of Men Let Me Reason, the podcast. Now, this podcast is a space where we discuss the unspoken realities of manhood. However, today is particularly special because we have some very special guests. We're doing something a little different. We actually have women today on our panel, two phenomenal women. And the reason for these women is that we as men, we talk about empowerment, we talk about education and family, but we can't do it alone. We need to include women. And this discussion this afternoon is about the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence and everything that surrounds that, and how do we increase the awareness, how do we get people involved, and how do we also include men in the conversation. So with me today is Miss Marlene Hewitt. She is the president of the Business and Professional Women's Club. And we have a young lady who is usually behind the cameras, the director of this podcast. She's a business owner. She is my executive assistant. She does nearly all the work, but she got enough mouth, and they decide you have to move from behind the camera and bring that mouth in front of the camera. Miss Rhasheda Skeete.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I say good afternoon, but you know what I mean. And, I just also want to say that we are bringing this podcast directly in St. Philip, from the Lighthouse Landing facility. You can see behind me how beautiful this place is. I really want to thank the management for giving us permission to use this for this podcast. Anyway, as we jump straight into this topic, Marlene, before we get into the 16 days of activism and all of that, you spoke about the Business and Professional Women's Club. Tell us who you are and what you do.
The Business and Professional Women's Club is a non-profit organization operating as a charity. We're part of an international organization and we're in about 90 countries in the world, on all the continents. And we are all about promoting women, quality of women, empowerment of women. The organization also holds a seat at the UN. So we're pretty big and pretty good.
Bigger?
Yeah. Actually, I'm on my way on Saturday to the International Congress, which will be held in St. Kitts. And we are having people from 90 countries attending. We'll be choosing a new executive for the next 3 years. Beautiful. BPW Barbados, actually's mandate is equality for women, social justice, and empowerment of women. So we have been involved in women's affairs. I think we started in 1966, we started in 1967. So we're pretty old.
Yeah.
And we've been involved in every aspect pertaining to women. We sit on legislative committees. We would have brought in the first career showcase was held by BPW in Barbados. We also help bring in guidance counselors. We help the government in terms of anything to do with family, women, men, children, any legislation, any policies. Recently, we're sitting on the policy pertaining to population control, increasing the population. Also, we were working as far as the disabled. We had to sat on one or two of the committees. So we are involved in everything. The government tends to invite us to most of their work.
Okay.
Especially in the middle of the day.
That's very, very, very good. Very good.
But
Very important.
we are normally there. And we do a lot of other projects. Our most recent project is the financial literacy course. Next year will be our 4th year. It's 6 weeks for women at the lower economic level, and it's free.
Okay.
All of our projects are free. So we've done self-development projects. Any and every project you can think of, we've been involved in. And it's for free.
Good.
Interesting.
Tell us a bit about the Crisis Center.
Our 2 biggest projects, or as we call them, our flagship projects. One was the Crisis Center. We opened in 1986. I think right behind us came the Samaritans. And it came about as a rape crisis center. They had some rapes around the UWI. And we decided to open the crisis center. We changed it from rape crisis center to crisis center. And also we decided we didn't have a home, but we would have a crisis center where we could still do other things. In this center, we would do a lot of work, especially in terms of awareness and education with people like the police, the military, any of the social services. We do a lot of training with them, and we've actually helped the police to put a module within their, I think for all the police that come in, the young police, to put a module in their training program on intimate partner violence, domestic violence.
Wow.
So we do a lot, and that crisis center is open 24/7. The hotline is 24/7. We will handle intimate partner violence, domestic violence, rape, sexual assault, and suicide. We picked up suicide after the Samaritans went down over 20 years ago. And so we are one of the leading, it's either men's or us most of the time, or psychiatry hospital that people will call. So we handle that. And then from that, we realized that we were getting a lot of calls from women who were running for men but had nowhere to go. So we petitioned the government, and after a few years of lobbying, we opened the shelter for abused women and the children in 1999, still running, still operating, have never had a day without women and children in the shelter. So that's us. That's a prestige.
We would like to get to a point where there are no women in that shelter.
We were hoping that it would have occurred last week, but it didn't happen. As soon as we were like, there are going to be no women, new family came.
You know, I really admire the work that you guys do. And people always think that and I mean, you always say we don't use this word. People always think that there's a fight. I don't know, Marlene, this time you don't use the word fight. That there's some sort of battle or tussle between the women and the men. And I would like this podcast really to dispel that myth. You know, I mean, I think that we are very good friends. I think we could call each other on matters and share. And I think like the organization, you guys are veterans in this gender field, you know. And we in men's, I look to you guys for leadership and guidance as I work in my space to help empower men, you know. And I've seen like I guess the question is, you know, there's so many, you have so many programs for women at all levels. And you know, people say, but they ain't got nothing so for men, you know. That has always been quarrel, they ain't got nothing so for men. Men just get beat too. And why they only focusing on women? And
well, we are international women's organization, but we've always tried to work with men's organization. But we find, apart from men's, this is the first organization other than MISA that I could say have gotten over that 1 year hump. We're
5 years. Just like 5 years. 5 years and many more 5 years to come.
We've held a lot of the organization's hands, but invariably they go down. I think men have a position of power, and when you have a position of power, you don't want to give it up, even though you know that you need something else. And for us women who are climbing the ladder, we know that the only way that we are going to succeed is if we come together. So we have an umbrella organization, which is National Organization of Women, and we have about 13 organizations under that umbrella.
Okay.
I don't know when that will ever happen for the men, but at least you make a start.
Yeah, we try.
We have always partnered with men. We hold their hands. We give them advice. We are always there if they need any help.
And we salute you. Yeah. We appreciate you. And we definitely celebrate you guys. You know, we really appreciate that work and that support that you get from your organization. Now, let's talk a bit about the 16 days of activism.
Yeah.
Some people may not know what it is. I've never heard about it until it got involved in advocacy for men and men empowerment. I really did not know. I mean, we started August the 24th. I don't remember Leanne Worrell, I would like to call her my good friend. You know, was telling me about this event, and we had an event, I guess, with a whole set of the female organizations at the St. Leonard's Boys School. You know, I jumped straight into the fire. And this was for this 16 days, and I was like, okay, then you were looking at rape culture and so forth. And that is where I really got introduced to this 16 days. So tell us a bit about what is the 16 days, and then I guess we're having a general conversation about domestic violence and how do we look to eliminate. I don't even want to say mitigate or reduce. We want eliminate it.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah.
The 16 Days of Activism Against Gender-Based Violence is an annual international campaign. It's a UN campaign, and it kicks off on the 25th of November, which is the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. And it runs until the 10th of December, which is Human Rights Day. And it's held all over the world. So if you just put in Google, whatever, 16 days, you will see so many programs. It's the time of the year where we can bring awareness and talk about all the things that we've done, the programs, the projects, and going forward, what we would like to achieve. And so different countries do different things according to where they are in the process. But I learned from the other countries. I would go in and Google and find out what they're doing and see if we can just change it up to suit Barbados sometimes, because 16 days is a long time.
It is a long time.
But there is a lot of projects, and because we have so many different organizations, we try to each put at least 1 or 2 projects in.
Yeah.
So, and it is supposed to be led by the Bureau of Gender Affairs. The shelter comes under the Bureau of Gender Affairs under the Ministry of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs.
Yeah. And this podcast is actually, this particular episode is our contribution to the 16 days of activism in terms of building awareness, trying to get people to understand what it is about, and trying to amplify the message.
One thing I want to say, because most people think that when we say gender-based violence, we are talking about intimate partner violence or domestic violence. But there's a lot more under gender-based violence. So I'll try to run through most of them.
Sure, go ahead.
Rape, sexual assault, child brides. Doesn't happen in Barbados, but child brides.
Brides. Experience
you're marrying off children, especially girls,
brides,
at
weddings.
a very young age to very mature men.
Right.
And you would find that more in Trinidad, in the region, in Guyana. And sometimes it's not exactly a bride, but in countries where you have a lot of indigenous people, you might marry off your child around the age of consent. So they're not brides, child brides, but it's really the same thing because those girls haven't yet grown up.
And this age of consent is like 14 or so.
Yeah, 14, 16. And when they go in to marry somebody who is an adult, they have no power. So that's how we look at it in the region as well. Also, honor killings, where you're killing that woman because of honor in whichever country you're in. You think that they should marry somebody, and if they say, well, I don't want to get married to that guy, they will kill you. Sometimes the family will kill you. Sometimes your parents will kill you. It just depends. You also get femicides, where you're killing women because they're women.
Right.
And at one time, I think Mexico had an issue where women were being found along the street, and for no reason, they were being killed. So you have honor killing. You also have sterilization of women, where they haven't consented to sterilization. So that's also gender-based violence. Acid throwing acid in women's faces. So there's a lot of different areas under gender-based violence. So it's not just domestic violence or intimate partner violence. All of these come under gender-based violence.
And thank you for that clarification. I think, again, it's important because when people hear gender-based violence, they jump to the fact of men beating women. Full stop.
Yeah.
Right.
Nothing else,
No,
you know.
there are a lot of
And we even want to acknowledge, you know, that I guess a lot more men are even speaking out about violence against them.
Yes.
And we've just had the amendments to the Sexual Offences Act, which speaks to men now being recognized. Men can actually report sexual violence against them, and it will be taken serious and, you know, is in law. So I mean, we're moving in a progressive way.
And men should realize that when women started also going to court, we were in the same position that men think that they're in now. Nobody took us on.
Right.
When we got on you know, when you got into the courtroom and you got at the podium, the lawyers for the defense would ask you every question that made you feel like you were being raped again. How many men you had, which position your leg was in, etc.
Wow.
And we had to fight through all of that. So men shouldn't really be too concerned that, say, when they go to the police is not going to believe them or listen to them. You have to stick with it. You have to fight it. You have to write them. You have to talk to them. You have to bring programs for them, and things will change. Things change for us, and I can see that it will change for them.
I think things are changing. I think we have a lot more education. They're building a lot more awareness, and I must say the policymakers, they're showing that they're trying to be as progressive as they can be in the laws and I guess in protocols and the way that they deal with these cases.
Yes.
Now, Rhasheda, you want to bring you in this conversation. You know that we lay the foundation, and as a young, beautiful woman, not only just a young, beautiful woman, but a mother.
Yeah.
You know, you hear all the things Marlene talk about?
Yeah.
What that make you feel as a woman?
It was interesting because when you spoke about the child brides, we have a situation similar in Barbados. It's not necessarily that they're married off, but a lot of young women are used for financial and monetary gain for families. And that's something that is prominent and not talked about enough in Barbados or in the Caribbean period. As some person who grew up as that curvy little 8-year-old that didn't look like an 8-year-old, to be sexually objectified from a very young age, it really changed your mindset when it comes to men, and comes to you understanding your body and understanding what sexually objectification looks like as a child. So my mother had to have very hard conversations with me at 8 years old, at 9 years old, at 10 years old, because I wasn't a little skinny 8-year-old. I had a little waist, I had legs, I had a behind, I filled out clothes, and there were men that will literally catcall me at 8 years old. Now, I am a mom of 2 boys, 19 and 7. And I have conversations with both of them. Keep your hands to yourself, always be a gentleman. But men also have to experience peer pressure, because masculinity is also tied to how you can get a woman, the things you say to a woman. Like, so it's hard to, as a female and as a female in business, where you would want to be soft and feminine and girly, but you have to be tough, because there's always the chance that you're going to have a sexual or flirtatious barrier put there. I think these spaces are important, because a lot of these policies that may change, or policies that may be in movement, may not necessarily be known. Like, it was news to me. It was interesting for me to learn about. But it has been, I have been the victim of attempted rape. I have been the victim of men who went from being extremely nice when they were trying to get your attention to almost violent when you didn't pay them any attention. And you see that all the time, Bridgetown, van stands, taxi stands. You're the sweetest thing when you pass. The minute you don't pay them any mind, the things that they hurl at you, the insults that they hurl at you is like, I am a human just like you. Like, how could you say, do you not have sisters? Do you not have a mother? Do you not have daughters? So it's hard to exist in this world sometimes as a woman, simply because of what you have to go through because you are a woman.
And it is unfortunate, you know. I apologize on behalf of the men. I'm not laughing matter anyway, but
We do thank you for the work you do, Fabian.
I
We do
know,
thank you.
I know
We do
that
thank you.
I know that it is very difficult for women.
Yeah.
But when you see my involvement in this type of advocacy came through violence as well. I guess the initial thing was violence.
Yeah.
And my intervention really, I thought it cannot be at a victim support level.
Right.
Because I see a lot of, you're speaking about the 16 years of activism against gender-based violence. In our Barbadian cultural dynamic is very different from a lot of what Marlene mentioned just now. And, I really thought that to get to the root, because we're speaking about elimination of this violence.
Yeah.
Research is saying that us men, unfortunately, are the main perpetrators of this violence and activity. The question is, how do we stop this? How do we change these men perspective? How do we get men thinking differently? How do we get men to view women differently? How do we get men to act differently? And hence the reason why I started the Men Empowerment Network support.
Yeah.
I support the women organizations, but I don't think we were doing enough work with the emotional and psychological disposition of men, because it starts to be mine. Whatever you think is what you're going to act, and a lot of men suffer from their childhood traumas.
Yeah.
Traditionally, we were beaten as boys. We were never taught. We were told that we can't talk in here.
There was no space for emotions either.
Yeah, we were treated culturally. Well, people may think that you're preparing for a man, he gotta be a man. It was very harsh. It has shaped us in such a way that many of us know only violence as a way to deal with conflict. And because we only know violence, then when we get involved in relationships, so I tell people, like, when you stay home, you beat your child, your son, understand that your son is learning how to deal.
That's equating love with
exactly.
lashes. Yep.
Beating, How can we do it differently? How can we develop new skills? How can we start with our boys to get them in a frame of mind to say, well, look, I have a choice. I have a choice outside of these fists, Marlene, what's your thoughts?
I think that, if I don't like people beating children. I remember giving my nieces books when their children were very small and showing them that there's a different way. I was beaten when I was a child, mainly by my mom, actually, because my dad didn't really believe in beating. He probably beat me about twice. He believed in talking. I would say he was an excellent parent. That's one thing. Parent everybody in Grisettes. I Grisettes. Violence brings balance as well. And to change things, we have to start at the primary school. One of the things that we may look at is human rights. What is your right as a human being? Because children at very young ages may not understand the whole concept of, domestic violence, etc. But if you talk to them about rights, what's your right as a human being? You have a right to privacy. You have a right not to be beaten. You have a right, whatever that right may be. They'll start to understand. So if I have a right and you have a right, then I treat you the same way I want you to treat me.
Bajans don't like this work.
I know.
We're Bajans,
yes, we understand. We understand rights.
Exactly.
You got rights, but rights also brings a responsibility. Once you understand that, you can talk to children about their rights and be able to explain to them people shouldn't touch you. Good touch, bad touch, things like that. All of that comes into it. And I think once we start at a young age, progressively we will start to change. Can't expect we will change everybody. At the same time, it will take a few centuries.
I agree, but I will add to it. I feel like it starts at home though.
Right? That too.
And we have generational gaps that deal with parenting differently. Now we have to first start with forgiveness and forgive our parents because they didn't know any better and their parents didn't know any better.
How we get there?
I think it's self-awareness. So you know how you get your tail cut. Now, I got lashes, but lashes in my household was a last resort. It was not the language of the household. There was conversation, there were consequences, and if you didn't pass the conversation, do the consequences, then you would get lashes. Now, for me, I am a combination of gentle parenting and my mother. So, and I have people in my generation, I'd be like, I sound so much like my mom. But for us to be self-aware when it comes to, we know what it felt like when we were brutalized as kids, or what we consider brutalization, being beaten. Do we want our children to experience that? It comes down to conversations with our boys. Now, when it comes to masculinity again, we all tell our boys, what are you crying for? What are you showing weakness? Men supposed to be strong. But in vulnerability, you show strength. In showing tears, you show strength. So if we give them the narrative of, I can't show these emotions because I'm going to be seen as weak, when they get to be men to have to be vulnerable with their women, they will never be able to do it. So it starts with our parents. It starts with fathers not giving the rhetoric of weakness is equated to showing emotion. It shows it takes a certain level of strength to be vulnerable.
Rhasheda, I want to pause you there.
Sure.
I want to pause you there, right?
No problem.
Because this is a men's podcast, and I want the men feel like selling out. I coming to you real. You see this thing about being an emotional man?
Right.
Don't get me wrong, no?
Okay.
I agree that we men need to be emotionally aware.
Yes.
We need to have an emotional vocabulary. We
And
need to be
intelligence.
able to speak it.
Yes.
Speak what we are feeling outside of saying we vex, okay, all right.
Right.
But study this, right? When a women don't give you a chance to be emotional, man, you
I
can
agree.
imagine it being you man.
Right.
And they can hold next to you crying. Women, you see, we just
Women
talk
who
about
are
this.
not self-aware.
Listen to me, we talk about these things, right? You can imagine it sitting in front of us and tears coming down my eyes. You want to sort of soft man, especially if you're new in the relationship. You want to sort of man to get involved. He's crying very much.
Again,
like he very
again, because
soft.
we've been raised to equate showing tears as weakness. For me, I can be like, what happened?
Yeah.
Tell me what happened first. Or I will ask, and don't get me wrong, I'm guilty of being the man to be want to be like, what are you right? Like, what is wrong with you? What is going on?
So you guilty of this?
I am. I
So
will
you
never
don't
be
have
the one.
Want to start pretty?
I would never
You
be the
thought pretty
one
for this set.
to say that I've
Right.
not done things incorrectly in relationships or with men, but in being self-aware and understanding that could have been more damaging than anything else. Because in his vulnerability, I've shown him that I am not a trusted space. I am not a safe space for him to be soft.
Yeah.
And now he's gonna automatically zip that back in. And the moment I may have had to break through a barrier to learn to understand something, I lost it because I automatically shut him down to make him feel that he was less than because he was crying. Now I'm self-aware with a teenage boy who has moments of not opening up because he's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Praise God, you got that child. Because if you had he, you didn't get empathize with us, man. So I don't know.
not
Anyway,
true.
I mean, I want to hear
That's
Marlene on
not
this. Come
true.
here, you got this here with you. Praise God for that youngster.
Remember, you're raised in the same families.
Yes.
So if you're raised
Yep.
in a family where your parents are telling the boys don't cry, there was always that sharp division of
Yes.
labor. I've always been saying from the time I was a child that boys should be raised like girls and girls should be raised like boys, and so they will come together. I've always said that because I remember the amount of things that I couldn't do. Girls can't do this.
Girls can't
lucky
climb.
for me,
Mhm.
I was in a house that was only one child, and that was me. So I got to do
Only
the
lucky.
housework. I got to do the
Outside
yard work.
Right.
I look after the pigs, the ducks, the chickens, everything, carry out the goat, milk the goat. So I saw both sides. But
Right.
all of my friends, the boys did the yard work, the girls did the cooking, the ironing, and I thought it was stupid.
Yeah.
I always told my parents that that's stupid. Because we're all children and you should give work according to your age, not
Right.
according to your sex.
Right.
Yeah.
So I agree. It's difficult for women not to have that feeling that men shouldn't cry because you always hear men shouldn't cry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you crying for? You're a man. Stand up. Be straight.
Yes.
Be strong. And I remember when my dad's mom died, when he got the news, because she had gone back. We knew she was sick, but she had gone back to the States. And my dad went to work. And I was like, why are you going to work? And he was like, I'm going to work. I got to go to work. Work is important. And I kept saying, no, you should be home. And I understood it because to him, he had to be strong.
Mhm.
He couldn't let anybody know that he was feeling that sadness. And when he got to work and he started work, his boss realized, no, you need to go home.
Right.
Yeah.
So the boss sent him back home, and I was very happy because
Right.
he kissed the boss. Because I
Yeah.
thought, you know, and he worked in construction. That's a dangerous field.
Yeah, for him to
Yeah.
not be focused, for him to not be there.
So it's for us to learn and gradually to make some changes, women as well as men. Both
Yeah,
of us
I
make changes.
totally agree. And
Changes.
you know, while maybe I think Rhasheda earlier, I think there's some conversations that we really need to have because
For
when we have
sure.
when we got women
For
like
sure.
you, Marlene, doing an excellent job with trying to deal with this whole thing of gender-based violence. Rhasheda spoke about the catcalling and that
Yep.
sort of stuff.
Yep.
We have another set of women out there who just encourage this behavior. You know?
Mhm.
I was getting to that
So
point.
while
I was getting to that point.
while we have women who see it as abuse,
Mhm.
as it is, or disrespect, you
Mhm.
know, towards women,
Mhm.
there are women out there who encourage this behavior, and got men believe like this is the way to approach women. This is the way to treat women. If you don't treat me this way, you're a man,
And
I'm
if
a
they
woman.
don't do it,
So how do we? So we're in a society where we push it out, we pull it.
Yep.
You know, you're advocating for one thing, for your, let me say, gender group.
But that same gender
grouping,
group is what causes somebody damage too.
But then now,
Yeah.
we still got some women out there who encouraging it. They got some that I like to fight though.
Yes.
That I like the men to beat them.
Yes.
That I like a slap.
Yes.
I mean, it is unfortunate. I'll tell you this. It is a reality.
No,
I have
wasn't
seen
saying
it.
it was a
I have
reality.
seen
There
it.
are women.
I have
You gotta
heard
remember,
it.
women are human beings too.
Right.
And women
Okay.
like to fight just like anybody else.
Right.
I can remember fighting when I was a child, so women like to fight. But again, is having that education, having that awareness, and recognizing that if you can make some changes, life will get better.
Yeah.
You'll be
Mhm.
happier. You can communicate more when you're in relationships instead of one person in one corner next because you didn't say to the person, well, yes, you can cry, or yes, but you can't throw something at me. Because I've had to speak to men in terms of violence where the woman is who is, she's not going to maybe hit you in the sense that she knows she's not as strong as you are, but she will throw things
Mhm.
at you. She may throw something with hot liquor,
Right.
hot tea or something like that. And so you also have to guide men in what they can do to either get that resolve or to move on to a relationship.
Okay.
On your
So it
point,
goes both ways.
where you were
Sorry.
talking about there are women that like a slap, or there are women that like to fight. The onion that no one wants to peel back is, where did that trauma come from? Where did they see that behavior romanticized? Because that behavior in some level of a household was romanticized and accepted. So for them, in their mind, if it is not that I getting this because I saw somebody else got this and it was normal, if I'm not getting this, then this man could never love me.
Mhm.
That is the onion that we don't peel back. Some of the associations that are for women are only for women at the end result. But there's nothing in between. There's nobody talking about therapy, trauma. We are so quick to tell our men, go to therapy. We need to go to.
Wait, say that again.
We need to go to.
So that
Women
again.
need to go to therapy.
Ooh.
Women need
Wow.
to go to
Cause
Never
therapy.
hear that.
Men are not the only one that have
Yeah.
household traumas.
Yeah.
Men are not the only
if you
ones.
come up watching your dad beat your mom,
Yeah.
you also have trauma. So you need to go into therapy as well,
You
because
can't tell
sometimes
some women about trauma.
I know you
and you
can't,
know-
but you won't
Trauma.
say it. But you don't say it in that way. You try to get them to recognize. You first ask them how they feel about it, how they feel about their father, how they feel about their mom, and the whole issue, and try to guide them step by
Why?
step in terms of you may need to get some help.
But
in
why
order
this
to-
sugarcoating approach is not
Right.
done to men? Men
No,
are
you do
always
that.
the one.
You can do that too.
Men are always the ones to say, but you need to go and get therapy. You traumatized. Da, 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 da. But then I find women are always approached with kid gloves, and I get it. As a woman, we go through, and I won't say that men and women go through more than the other, but women go through challenges that I think are a lot harder than men. Yes, men have their issues, men have their things, but we are literally killed because of our genders.
Yeah.
Literally. Okay? We don't do anything. We were born female, and that means that we are deserving of death in some men's minds. However, I feel like where men always feel like they get the tough end of the stick is women are handled with kid gloves, and men are always thrown into the deep end and expected to swim. Figure it out. You need therapy. You come up in a trauma house. Like, you can't see you traumatized. That's what you did. We will always think. I was having a conversation when I was working with some troubled women and friends of mine that were going through some things. And one of the things that she said, that you would think I see my mother getting beat, that I would not think that I would do it for myself. And I'm sure that's a question everybody be like, but you see what it's caused. You see how it hurt. But for her, she was like, it just felt familiar.
Yeah.
It felt normal. And if I didn't do it, I felt so out of character. Could you imagine?
Even for children, I was watching a program and the children said, and it had nothing to do with domestic violence directly. The father had the children, but I think he was had some mental issues, and he was moving those children, but he was also abusing them.
Right.
And they said because where they weren't allowed to go to other families, etc. And they said, well, I thought this was the normal. This was normal.
This is the norm.
Until we got taken out of the situation, and then they began to see, wait, that really wasn't normal. So that happens. You could be in a situation, male or female, and you think this is normal.
Right.
But as we wind down this podcast episode, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Let me look at some solutions. How do we move forward with this whole advocacy? As you say, we're speaking about the elimination of violence against women and girls, which is on the 25th of November. We are speaking about Human Rights Day, which is on the 10th of December. Between that is the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. All of that in between there, How do we bring women and men along collectively, and not just have a message tailored towards women and victim support,
right,
but towards men as well, with the same victim support, but we really want to see how we can get in tune with who we are as individuals, deal with our traumas, how do we deal with our boys, how do we really start the process of men and women moving together?
One of the things that we definitely need is more communication, definitely. And
communication with who?
Communication with both men and women, communication between men and women as well.
Okay.
One of the things that you normally use to get your message out there is the media. And I think the media is the place that reach every single person in the population.
Right.
And we're finding it difficult lately to get the media to recognize that they're the people to be out there pushing the message of awareness, of prevention, of education. So maybe we need to start talking to the media as well to get them to understand you can reach more people than I can.
Right.
If you can get all the organizations, maybe put a space, maybe on the radio, maybe on the newspaper, a little bit of space that we can send a message, that we can talk about what has happened between men and women. Maybe we have a little workshop and this is what came out of it, that people can start to see that there's some changes, there's things happening. I think that will be good. That would be one of the areas.
But I think as well that a lot of that has been started. We just got to upscale it some more. I guess we need a lot more organizations on board. We need to amplify a lot of what is being done, because it's not a case that things are not being done. It's not a case that we're not talking about it. We need to talk about it more. We need to get it out there. We need to get people not only talking it, but doing it. We need to be able to apply it to ourselves and our relationships. We need to impact our role as parents, how we connect with our children, how we connect with our spouses, both men and women. I mean, it needs to be a holistic approach. Rhasheda, I can give maybe say the last word, ma'am.
I think we gotta both genders have to embrace accountability. release
Accountability.
finger pointing,
Yes.
and understand that we cannot get better unless we do it together. One doesn't get better without the other. I see men and women operating, and I use this analogy all the time. It's a head and neck situation. A man is a head, a woman is a neck. You men, you think about how you just get up in the morning, you got a stiff neck. Your whole body has to move for your head to be fluid. But if your neck is fluid and supple and your head is strong, your body can do amazing things. One cannot work without the other. So women and men have to understand it is a unity that we need. It is a togetherness we need. We need to not say, but it is you that is do this and it is you that do that. We have to stop the finger pointing, embrace accountability, and understand that we can't pull one on the journey, but we gotta walk hand in hand and step in step for us to get better.
I always say, right, that we just start this thing real pretty, you know? And we just don't do it in our own personal space.
Yes.
So all that pretty thought I want you foot to the
I
fire.
for sure,
That
for sure.
you get practice
For
with your
sure.
preach.
The accountability part,
All
for sure,
right,
for sure, for
All
sure.
right, my friend. So I just want to thank you, Rhasheda,
Thank you.
for moving from behind the camera to in front of the camera and looking as gorgeous as you
Thank
are,
you.
Marlene.
Thank
All
you.
of her independent scholars. This
Yes.
is Barbados.
You see Marlene
Republic.
glasses got yellow or
Oh,
yellow
yes,
blue.
it is true.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
Marlene, thank you as
You're
well
welcome.
for coming and really sharing with us. I think we need to have a lot more of these
Yes.
conversations.
For sure.
You know, I mean, I get some licks for this podcast, but I don't mind.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, men can't move forward alone.
It's
For
true.
sure.
We need women. Rhasheda will talk with the head and neck. We need women. And this is our very first podcast where we invite women into this space.
Mhm.
And it was good. It was
I
great.
agree. We need
So,
more.
thank you very much for tuning in. This very special episode of Main Levy Reason. We are on all social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify. And I really want to thank the Ministry of People's Empowerment and Elder Affairs and the Bureau of Gender Affairs for sponsoring this particular episode. They're doing fantastic work. They're supporting the NGOs and the charities out there. I also want to thank the Lighthouse Landing again for this fantastic facility. You know, they're Airbnb facility. So if you search for them, you will find them. And yeah, I really gotta come here and get a little weekend for
For
myself,
sure.
I think.
For sure.
And this entire Men Levy Reason podcast is a production of Men Empowerment Network support. We now have our office. You can reach us on all social media platforms as well. Men Empowerment Network support. We have our new email address as we have admin@mens, MENS246.com. Our new number is 850-6367 or 850-MENS. Not easy to remember. 850-MENS. Finally, I got to thank the YMCA. Our office is at the YMCA. Another wonderful organization doing fantastic work. And MENS and the YMCA will be doing some work going forward. We have some special projects coming. Look out. Look on our social media platforms. We coming at you. We're going to amplify this thing. We're going to get men talking. We got to get men empowered.
For sure.
And as we empower men, as we empower women, we can go a better society.
That's
So
right.
until next time, blessings.